Story 1. I don't consider myself a foodie, but I know good food when I taste it. And Savor Street, the hottest new food truck in our city, definitely had good food. Their Korean-Mexican fusion tacos had people lining up for blocks since they opened 3 months ago. I'd been following them on social media, watching their reputation grow, and today I finally had a chance to try them myself. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon when I joined the line that wrapped around the corner of Central Park. The wait was estimated at 45 minutes, but the mouth-watering smells wafting from the truck convinced me it would be worth it. I brought my e-reader along, settled into the line, and prepared for the wait. About 20 minutes in, when I was deeply engrossed in my book, a commotion at the front of the line caught my attention. A woman with highlighted blonde hair styled in an expensive-looking bob was arguing loudly with people near the front. She wore designer sunglasses perched on her head and carried a large leather handbag that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I couldn't hear everything she was saying, but her body language made it clear she was trying to cut in line. The people at the front were having none of it, gesturing to the long line behind them. I returned to my book, assuming the situation would resolve itself. A few minutes later, the same woman strutted past me, moving confidently toward the front of the line. As she passed, I heard her muttering about people not understanding how important her time is. My curiosity piqued. I bookmarked my page and watched as she approached the front again. This time, she changed tactics. Instead of trying to simply push in, she pulled something that looked like a badge from her purse and held it up with authority. Her voice carried down the line. "Woman, excuse me. I'm with the city health department. I need immediate access to inspect this establishment." The people at the front of the line looked uncertain, glancing at each other. Taking advantage of their hesitation, she pushed past them and marched directly to the service window of the food truck. The line collectively murmured in disapproval, but no one quite knew how to challenge someone claiming official authority. The owner of the food truck, a man in his early 40s with a friendly face and a crisp white chef's coat, leaned out of the window to speak with her. From where I stood, I could see his expression shift from concern to suspicious. "Owner, ma'am, could I see your identification again, please?" The woman flashed her badge quickly, not allowing him a good look. "Woman, health department. I've received several complaints about this establishment and need to conduct an immediate inspection. I'll need samples of all your menu items as well." The owner's face hardened as he held out his hand. "Owner, I'll need to examine your credentials properly. Health inspectors don't collect samples of menu items, and they always call ahead to schedule inspections." The woman's confident demeanor faltered slightly. "Woman, that's not true. We do random inspections all the time. Now, are you going to cooperate, or should I shut you down right now?" The owner crossed his arms. "Owner, actually, I worked for the health department for 7 years before opening this food truck. I know exactly how inspections work. That badge you're flashing isn't a health department ID, so I'll ask again, who are you?" The people at the front of the line were now openly watching the confrontation. The woman glanced around, clearly realizing her plan was falling apart. "Woman, how dare you question me? Do you know who my husband is? He plays golf with the mayor. I could have this truck shut down with one phone call. Owner, feel free to make that call. In the meantime, I'm making one of my own to the actual health department to report someone impersonating an inspector, which is a criminal offense." He pulled out his phone and began dialing. The woman's face turned an alarming shade of red. "Woman, this is ridiculous. I was just trying to save time. The line is absurdly long, and I have an important charity lunch to get to." A man standing near the front of the line spoke up. "Man in line, so you're not with the health department. You were just cutting in line?" "Woman, I'm a very busy person. I don't have time to wait in line like regular people." Another person in line chimed in. "Person in line, we're all busy. I've been waiting 30 minutes already." The owner finished his call and looked directly at the woman. "Owner, I just spoke with my friend at the department. No inspections are scheduled today. and they take impersonation very seriously. They've dispatched someone to come deal with this situation. The woman's confident facade completely crumbled. She looked frantically from the owner to the increasingly hostile crowd. Woman, this is a simple misunderstanding. I was just joking about being an inspector. Can't anyone take a joke anymore? Owner, flashing a fake badge and threatening to shut down a business isn't a joke. It's fraud. Now, you have two options. You can wait here for the authorities to arrive, or you can go to the back of the line like everyone else. The woman looked at the back of the line, which had grown even longer during this confrontation, then back at the owner. Woman, this is absurd. I'm leaving. Your food probably isn't even that good. As she turned to storm off, the owner called after her. Owner, ma'am, I'll still need to get your information for the report. Impersonating a government official is a serious offense. Woman, I'm not giving you anything. This is harassment. Just then, a police cruiser pulled up to the curb. The crowd parted as an officer approached, followed by a woman in business attire with an actual health department badge visible on her belt. The fake inspector's eyes widened in panic. Police officer, is there a problem here? Before the owner could respond, the woman jumped in. Woman, officer, thank goodness you're here. This food truck owner was extremely rude to me when I was simply trying to place an order. The health department representative stepped forward. Health inspector, that's not what we heard. We received a report of someone impersonating a health inspector. Do you have identification claiming you work for the city health department? Woman, of course not. That would be illegal. This is all a misunderstanding. The owner leaned out of his truck window again. Owner, she flashed a badge and claimed she needed to inspect my truck and take food samples. When I questioned her, she threatened to shut me down. The police officer turned to the woman. Police officer, ma'am, can I see what's in your purse, please? Woman, you need a warrant for that. I know my rights. Police officer, ma'am, we have multiple witnesses saying you displayed a badge claiming to be a government official. If you don't consent to showing me your purse, we'll need to continue this conversation down at the station. After a tense moment, the woman reluctantly opened her handbag. The officer carefully reached in and pulled out what looked like a brass badge in a leather case. Upon opening it, he showed it to the health inspector, who shook her head. Health inspector, this is a novelty badge. You can buy them online. It says official inspector, but has no department name or identification number. Police officer, ma'am, I need to see your ID, please. The confrontation continued for another 10 minutes as the officer took statements from the owner and several witnesses. Eventually, they escorted the woman to the police car, explaining she was being cited for fraud and impersonating a government official. As they led her away, she continued protesting loudly. Woman, this is outrageous. I was just trying to get lunch. I'll sue all of you. My attorney will destroy this food truck. After the police car drove away with the fuming woman in the back seat, the food truck owner addressed the line. Owner, I'm sorry for the delay, everyone. Next person in line gets their meal on the house. The crowd cheered, and the line moved forward again. When I finally reached the window an hour later, the owner was still there, now with a bemused expression. Me, that was quite a situation earlier. Owner, happens more often than you'd think. Not the impersonation part, but people trying to cut in line. At least weekly. Usually they just claim to know me personally. Me, does working for the health department before opening a food truck help with keeping your standards high? Owner, absolutely. I know exactly what inspectors look for because I used to be one. That's why I knew immediately she was faking. Real inspectors are professionals. They don't demand free food samples or make scenes. As he handed me my Korean short rib tacos, he smiled. Owner, the officer just texted me. Turns out our fake inspector has pulled this same stunt at 3 other popular food spots in the city. 2 of them actually gave her free food to avoid trouble. But she won't be cutting any more lines for a while. She's facing multiple charges now. I took my first bite of the taco and understood immediately why the line was so long. It was absolutely worth the wait. A week later, I was scrolling through local news when I saw a small article about a woman pleading guilty to multiple counts of impersonating a government official. She was sentenced to community service, specifically serving food at a homeless shelter twice a week for 6 months. The judge was quoted saying, "Perhaps this will give you a new perspective on waiting your turn and serving others instead of expecting to be served first." Sometimes justice is served with a side of irony. And those tacos, I'm already planning when I can go back and wait in line again, legitimately, of course. Story 2. I never expected my routine doctor's appointment to turn into dinner party story material, but here we are. I've been dealing with some minor back issues, nothing serious, just the consequence of a desk job and poor posture. My primary care physician had referred me to a specialist, which is how I found myself in the waiting room of Memorial Hospital's orthopedic department on a Tuesday afternoon. Hospital waiting rooms are rarely pleasant, but this one wasn't terrible. Clean, reasonably comfortable chairs, slightly outdated magazines, and the usual mix of patients, some scrolling on phones, others staring absently at the muted TV in the corner. I'd been waiting about 15 minutes when she walked in. You know the type immediately. Designer handbag, but somehow still looks tacky. Expensive highlights. Oversized sunglasses perched on her head indoors. Multiple jangling bracelets that announced her presence before she even spoke. She approached the reception desk with the confidence of someone who believes the world exists to serve them. I couldn't hear everything she said to the receptionist, but her body language made it clear she expected special treatment. After a brief exchange, she huffed dramatically and turned to find a seat, scanning the room like she was evaluating inferior merchandise. With another loud sigh, she settled into a chair diagonal from mine and immediately pulled out her phone, speaking at a volume that ensured everyone could hear her important conversation. "Woman, you would not believe the energy in this place, Brenda. So toxic. I should have gone to that holistic doctor in Sedona instead. These Western medicine factories are just pharmaceutical pushers." She continued her loud critique of modern medicine, while the rest of us exchanged glances and subtle eye rolls. About 10 minutes later, a nurse appeared at the door with a clipboard. "Nurse, Mrs. Johnson, we're ready for you now." The woman looked up, gathering her numerous belongings. "Woman, it's Miss Johnson. I've been divorced for 5 years." The nurse smiled patiently. "Nurse, my apologies, Miss Johnson. If you'll follow me, we'll get your vitals before the doctor sees you." They disappeared down the hallway, and the waiting room returned to its peaceful state. I went back to my e-book, enjoying the relative quiet. That lasted exactly 7 minutes. The sudden shouting from down the hall made everyone in the waiting room look up. Though muffled at first, the voice grew louder, and I recognized it immediately as our waiting room diva. The words weren't clear yet, but the tone certainly was pure indignation. The receptionist looked alarmed and picked up her phone, speaking quietly into it. A moment later, the shouting became clearer as Miss Johnson reappeared, storming back toward the waiting area with the nurse following calmly behind. "Woman, I specifically said no invasive procedures. How dare you?" "Nurse, Miss Johnson, taking your blood pressure is a standard vital sign. It's not invasive, and we need it before." "Woman, don't you dare tell me what's invasive to my body. You are compressing my energy meridians and disrupting my aura's flow. I can literally see the dark energy your machine transferred to me." By now, everyone in the waiting room was witnessing this spectacle. The nurse maintained remarkable composure. "Nurse, I apologize if you felt uncomfortable, but we need basic vitals before the doctor can." "Woman, uncomfortable? Uncomfortable?" I was spiritually assaulted. That blood pressure cuff was restricting the chi in my arm. My spiritual advisor warned me about hospitals trying to disrupt natural energy fields. An older man in the waiting room couldn't suppress a laugh, which only enraged the woman further. She spun around to face all of us. "Woman, you think this is funny? They claim to heal, but they're actually disrupting the body's natural healing frequencies. That nurse was intentionally tampering with my aura. At this point, 2 security guards appeared, responding to the receptionist's call. They approached calmly, with practiced neutral expressions. Security guard 1, "Ma'am, is everything okay here?" Woman, "No, everything is not okay. I came for a simple consultation and was subjected to spiritual assault. That device she put on my arm was interfering with my body's natural vibrations. I could literally feel my chakras closing." The nurse explained quietly to the security guards, who nodded understanding. Security guard 2, "Miss Johnson, if you're uncomfortable with the standard procedures, perhaps we should reschedule when you're feeling more at ease." Woman, "At ease? At ease? I'm being gaslit by the entire medical establishment. I demand to speak to the hospital administrator right now. I want that nurse reprimanded for touching my arm without discussing the spiritual implications first." She was now fully performing for the waiting room audience, gesturing dramatically and occasionally checking to see if we were paying attention. We definitely were, though not for the reasons she probably hoped. "Nurse, Miss Johnson, we respect your right to refuse any procedure. If you don't want your blood pressure taken, we can note that in your chart, but the doctor may not be able to." Woman, "Oh, now you respect my rights? After you've already contaminated my energetic field? I can literally see the grayness you've introduced to my aura. It will take me weeks of crystal therapy to rebalance." Security guard 1, "Ma'am, we're going to need you to lower your voice. There are other patients here who—" Woman, "Other patients should be thanking me for exposing this. This assault, they're doing it to all of you too, you know? Deliberately disrupting your energy fields to keep you coming back for more treatments." She turned to address the waiting room directly. Woman, "Wake up, people. They put that thing on your arm to monitor you. But what they're really doing is implanting negative frequencies. I've studied this. I've read the blogs." A young woman in scrubs who had appeared in the hallway, possibly a doctor or another nurse, whispered something to the security guards. They nodded and stepped closer to Miss Johnson. Security guard 2, "Miss Johnson, we're going to have to ask you to leave the premises now. If you'd like to file a formal complaint, we can provide you with the proper channels to do so." Woman, "So you're removing me for speaking the truth? This is exactly like Salem. I'm being persecuted for my spiritual awareness." Security guard 1, "No, ma'am. You're being asked to leave because you're disturbing other patients and refusing standard care. We'd be happy to help you reschedule when." Woman, "I will never come back to this energy-sucking establishment. My wellness coach warned me about places like this. I should have listened." She gathered her purse and several shopping bags, making sure every movement was as dramatic as possible. Woman, "I'll be calling my attorney and my shaman. Both will be very interested to hear about this spiritual violation." As the security guards escorted her toward the exit, she continued her tirade, mentioning everything from big pharma conspiracies to meridian disruption and aura contamination. Just before reaching the door, she turned for one final dramatic declaration. Woman, I hope you all enjoy having your life force drained by these vampires in scrubs. The door closed behind them, and the waiting room fell silent for a moment. Then, something unexpected happened. Someone began to clap. Then another person joined in. Within seconds, the entire waiting room was applauding, partly for the entertaining show we'd just witnessed, but mostly for the nurse and security guards who had handled the situation with remarkable professionalism. The nurse, who had remained at the reception desk, looked embarrassed but gave a small smile and mock bow before returning to her duties. An elderly woman across from me leaned forward. Elderly woman, been coming to doctors for 70 years and never once worried about my aura. Seems to be intact so far. This broke the tension, and several people laughed. The conversations that followed were surprisingly warm strangers connecting over the shared experience of witnessing something truly ridiculous. My name was called soon after, and I was led to an exam room. When the orthopedic specialist came in, I couldn't help but ask if they encountered many patients concerned about their auras. "Doctor, more than you'd think, but usually not quite so vocal about it. That's a first for our blood pressure cuff, though. Usually it's the MRI machine that gets accused of disrupting energy fields." We both chuckled, and he added, "Doctor, the irony is, stress like what that woman was experiencing actually raises blood pressure significantly. So in refusing to have it checked, she was probably driving it higher." As I left the hospital with a referral for physical therapy, I passed the security guards who had handled the situation. They were discussing the incident, and I overheard one say they'd had to walk her all the way to her car while she lectured them about how their security badges contained electromagnetic frequencies that were known by ancient civilizations to cause spiritual imbalance. Sometimes the best medicine is a good laugh, and thanks to Miss Johnson and her precious aura, the entire orthopedic department got a healthy dose that day. Story 3. I've worked at Oak Ridge Public Library for over 3 years now. It's usually a quiet job helping people find books, managing the checkout system, and occasionally assisting elderly patrons with basic computer tasks. But last Thursday, I witnessed an incident so bizarre that the entire staff still talks about it. Our library has a modest computer section, 12 desktops, and a long table with power outlets for people to plug in their own laptops. The computer area is always busy after school hours, mostly with students working on assignments or job seekers updating resumes. We have a clear policy posted: 1-hour time limits when others are waiting, educational and professional use takes priority, and no changing the computer settings. It was around 4:30 p.m. when I noticed her arrive. A woman in her mid-50s with unnaturally red hair and enough jangling crystal jewelry to open a New Age shop. She surveyed the computer area with visible disapproval, noticing that all the desktops were occupied. Most users were high school students working on what appeared to be homework. The woman approached my desk with purpose. "Woman, excuse me, I need a computer immediately. When will one be available?" Me, "Good afternoon. All our computers are currently in use. Users have a 1-hour limit, so the next one should be available in about 20 minutes. There's a sign-up sheet here if you'd like to." Woman, 20 minutes. That's completely unacceptable. Mercury enters retrograde at 5:15, and I need to update my followers right away. My astrology blog has over 300 subscribers. Me, "I understand you're in a hurry, but I can't ask someone to give up their computer before their time is up. You're welcome to use the Wi-Fi with your own device at the tables if you have one." Woman, "I left my laptop at home specifically because I knew the library would have computers. Don't you understand? This is time-sensitive astrological information. These kids are just doing homework that could be done anytime." I glanced toward the computer area. The kids she was referring to included several older teens who appeared to be deeply focused on their work. Me, "I'm sorry, but our policy is first come, first served. Educational use does take priority, but everyone who's currently using a computer has the right to finish their session." Woman, "Educational use? My blog is educational. I'm educating people about the cosmos and their spiritual journey. That's far more important than whatever math problems these kids are doing." She stormed away from the desk before I could respond. I kept an eye on her as she circled the computer area like a shark. She peered over the shoulders of several students, tutting loudly and checking her watch repeatedly. Most of them shifted uncomfortably but continued working. I considered asking her to stop hovering, but hoped she'd settle down on her own. After about 5 minutes of this behavior, she spotted an empty chair at the long table where students with laptops were working. One boy, maybe 16 or 17, had his laptop plugged into an outlet and was typing intently, surrounded by textbooks and notes. The woman sat down directly next to him, though there were several other empty seats further down. I couldn't hear their initial exchange, but their body language told me it wasn't pleasant. The teen seemed to be politely but firmly responding to whatever she was saying. After a brief back and forth, he turned back to his work, clearly trying to ignore her. That's when things escalated dramatically. in a move so brazen I almost couldn't believe it. The woman reached over and unplugged the teen's laptop from the wall outlet. He jumped up in alarm as his screen dimmed, indicating his battery was nearly dead. Teen, what are you doing? I'm in the middle of a research paper. Woman, I need this outlet more than you do. The electromagnetic frequencies are better aligned on this side of the room, and I need optimal cosmic Wi-Fi for my astrology update. Teen, that's not how Wi-Fi works, and I was using that. Woman, don't you understand? Mercury retrograde affects electronic communications. I'm trying to warn my followers before it's too late. Your homework can wait. By this point, I was already heading toward them, and several other patrons were watching the scene unfold. Teen, you can't just unplug someone else's computer. I didn't save my work. Woman, oh please, the universe saves everything in its cosmic memory. Besides, your research paper on what is this, the Industrial Revolution, isn't exactly pressing spiritual knowledge. I reached their table as the teen was frantically trying to save his document on his rapidly dying battery. Ma'am, you cannot unplug another patron's device. That's completely unacceptable. Woman, I've been waiting for a computer for almost 10 minutes. This is discrimination against spiritual practitioners. You unplugged someone else's computer while they were using it. I'm going to have to ask you to leave the computer area. Woman, I will not. I have every right to be here. Do you know how important this cosmic alignment is? It only happens once every 88 days. By now, our head librarian had joined us, alerted by the commotion. Head librarian, what seems to be the problem? The teen, who had managed to save his work, but whose laptop had now completely died, explained the situation. The woman interrupted repeatedly with increasingly bizarre claims about cosmic energy and Wi-Fi alignments. Woman, this outlet has the optimal energy flow. I could sense it immediately. That's why I need this specific connection to the digital realm. Head librarian, ma'am, we don't allow patrons to unplug others' devices. We have a clear computer use policy posted at every station. Woman, policies are human constructs. Cosmic law supersedes your arbitrary rules. My spiritual guidance is more important than some teenager's homework. The teen, who had been remarkably composed throughout this exchange, finally spoke up. Teen, I was writing a research paper that's due tomorrow. It counts for 30% of my grade. I hadn't saved the last hour of work when she unplugged my computer. Woman, oh please, it's just a school assignment. My blog post could help hundreds of people avoid Mercury retrograde disasters. Head librarian, ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the library for today. You've disrupted another patron's work and violated our computer use policy. Woman, this is outrageous. I'm a taxpayer. I pay your salary. I demand access to a computer immediately for my essential spiritual work. As she continued protesting, the teen had pulled out his phone and was making a call. I couldn't hear what he was saying, but he seemed to be explaining the situation to someone. Head librarian, if you don't leave voluntarily, we'll need to call security. Woman, call whoever you want. I'll call the mayor. This is discrimination against alternative spiritual practices. You're all trapped in a conventional educational paradigm that doesn't recognize cosmic wisdom. While this extraordinary exchange continued, the teen ended his call and calmly began packing up his now dead laptop. Teen, my dad's on his way. He said to tell you he'll be here in 5 minutes. Woman, calling daddy to complain? Maybe you should focus on developing your spiritual independence instead of relying on parental authority figures. Teen, my dad is Councilman Mitchell. He oversees the library board. The color drained slightly from the woman's face, but she quickly recovered her indignation. Woman, well, perfect. He needs to hear about how this library is prioritizing mundane homework over spiritual enlightenment. I'll explain to him how Mercury retrograde affects municipal services. About 5 minutes later, a well-dressed man in his 40s entered the library and headed straight for our group. The teen briefly explained what had happened while the woman tried repeatedly to interrupt with her version of events. Councilman, so you unplugged my son's computer without permission, causing him to lose work on an important assignment. Woman, he wasn't using the cosmic energy properly. I needed that specific outlet for better spiritual alignment with my blog followers. The councilman looked genuinely bewildered. Councilman, I don't even know how to respond to that. What I do know is that you can't just unplug someone else's device because you want their spot. Woman, your son's homework isn't as important as my astrological warnings. Do you have any idea how many people could suffer technology failures if they're not prepared for Mercury retrograde? Head librarian, regardless of the content, we don't allow patrons to interfere with others' computer use. We've asked you to leave for today, and you've refused. Councilman, as someone who serves on the library board, I can tell you that this behavior could result in more than just being asked to leave today. Interfering with another patron's device could result in a suspension of library privileges. Woman, suspension. For trying to share critical cosmic information. This is persecution. Fine, I'll leave. But I'll be filing a formal complaint about how this library suppresses spiritual knowledge in favor of conventional education. She gathered her crystals and tote bag, then stormed toward the exit, but not before turning back for one final proclamation. Woman, when Mercury retrograde causes all your computers to crash, don't come crying to me. I tried to warn everyone. After she left, the councilman apologized to the staff for the disturbance and asked his son about his assignment. It turned out the teen had managed to save most of his work, but had lost about 30 minutes of writing. The head librarian offered him extended computer time to recover his work, and his father thanked her. As they were settling the teen at a desktop computer, the councilman approached the reference desk. Councilman, I'd like to file a formal complaint about this incident. That behavior is completely unacceptable. 2 weeks later, I learned through our staff meeting that the woman had been identified from our security footage and previous computer login records. She had been issued an official ban from all city libraries for 6 months, following a library board review of the incident. Apparently, she had previous complaints at other branches for monopolizing computers to update her astrology blog and lecturing patrons about their aura disruptions in the quiet reading section. The teen's research paper, despite the unexpected cosmic interruption, received an A-, and in a final twist of irony, the library's computer system did experience a major crash the following week, but it was due to a scheduled system update that had been on the calendar for months, not Mercury retrograde. Sometimes the stars align perfectly to deliver cosmic justice, even in a public library.